I've got a question for Alastair. I was rather intrigued to see that you were using Lustre mirroring, and I wondered what you were using it for.
Okay, so yeah, that's on our fast NVMe file systems. Each OST is an individual NVMe drive. So if a drive fails, we get data loss. Now it's a scratch file system, so users know that, but we give them the option if they want to, they can mirror. So that's why. Yeah. No, it's basically a lack of hardware redundancy.
Pete.
Simple one for Alastair as well. I saw you had a mix of ZFS and LDiskFS. Did you want to talk to what your decision, when you choose one option or the other?
Yeah, so I guess on the OSTs, we like to use ZFS just because ZFS, we're in UK. Just because I guess it's an easy way to get the software RAID in there. We've had better experience with that than with using a combination of LDiskFS and MD RAID and so on. So that's why we do it there. We have one file system where we've used it on the metadata target. Again, I guess that was experimental. We could have used MD RAID. We have done with other ones. I guess we wanted to see. It seemed at the time the right decision. Whether we would do that again, I don't know.
Yeah, Simon. Paul?
I had a question for Ian and I guess Dave on the metrics that you're rolling up. So I'm kind of used to Prometheus, where each statistic, each metric, each gauge that you gather, you have labels in which every time you add a label, it's extra cardinality that's expensive. And I noticed you were rolling up things like per user stats. Were you doing everything from the job ID, or were there any other cardinalities there?
So what we do is we encode all. When we submit a job, we basically encode all the thing into the 32-bit data. We then take the data, we get the job stats, we enrich it by decoding that and just present it in the.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really simple.
And does it hurt?
No.
Collecting that much data?
No, it's easy.
Great.
None of this is difficult.
Good.
I did it.
Well, I'll definitely try and give it a go.
Can I leap in quickly? Oh, sorry, Alastair. No, you have a question.
Question for the panel. Yeah. How frequently are you putting this into the?
We're doing it every 3 minutes, but that's based on roughly how long it takes to query one server. So we have 3, 6, 10 servers to do. It's quite a big YAML thing that you get from it, and then the aggregation. So it takes about 1.5 minutes to run. So do it every 3 minutes.
Okay, I don't need a microphone, but I'm going to carry on, James. So when I used to go and see Phil Butcher over the Sanger, he had this thing that all users got to see everything because they self-policed each other. Is this available?
Oh, everyone can see that data. Yeah, anyone can see it.
And do people use that, and do they police themselves?
Are. We've gotten from the stage of people asking us who they should shout at to them being able to do it themselves, which is different. I want it so they don't shout at each other.
Well, you've got to change human being. You might need to do some gene editing to do that.
Yeah, well, I want the I/O scheduling to work better. That's what I want.
Okay, excellent. Adam in the back.
Question for Alastair. I think one of the sites you listed said it's now running the community version. Just wonder if you could talk a bit about that and how they found that experience.
Yeah, that's right. So we're running the community version, and we don't build it ourselves. We just use the packages that are put there for CentOS 7. Yeah, I mean it works. It's perhaps missing some of the more advanced features than the DDN version, perhaps. particularly the surrounding infrastructure. But for us, it does the job most of the time. Well, almost all the time, apart from Christmas Eve. Yeah. Do you want me to, anything you want me to?
Well, I was just wondering, sometimes it takes a while for the very latest code to be embraced by the vendors, and I wondered whether you're doing it because you wanted some feature that was upstream but hadn't been sort of validated yet or anything like that.
I think we would, yeah, if there was an upstream feature that we wanted, so I think we would usually wait. And we would probably wait a few versions past when it was released, because we've had bad experience in the past with jumping on new features as soon as they'd been available and find. I think data or metadata was problematic at one point when it was brand new. Things like that.
Okay, I think James.
I'm just going to be a bit positive for a change, which is completely. So we've been using PFL for the last 3 file systems, and it works perfectly for us. And we're using data on metadata as well, and that's working well too.
Right.
So we're not using the DDN client, we're using upstream client, but the servers are DDN with embedded.
Right.
But that works fairly well.
Right.
Oh, at the back. And then.
Hi, I was going to ask a question to Jon. I was wondering if you've had a look at the shared secret key for like your client authentication versus Kerberos, and if there was like a performance difference between the two.
I haven't, no. I will do so, but our feeling was that it wasn't going to tick some of the information governance boxes that we actually wanted to tick. I have a dim recollection that it's been suggested that I can do both Kerberos and shared key, and so there may well be some projects where shared key is the answer, and some projects where the client-side encryption is the answer. And the thing with Kerberos is that it's either on or it's off, and hence why probably need to be sticking to KB5N for that, or nobody's going to be happy with the file system. But I will look. It's going to be everything else that these guys have talked about, the node maps, the routing, the rest of it. And it was something that we could do that no one else seemed to have been talking about, so we had it on the list to look at.
I suppose I'm not sure of this either, but it might be that the shared secret key can be enabled on a per node map basis. I'm not sure, but
yes,
if so, then that might help a little bit in terms of having it optionally. Whereas, I don't know whether Kerberos could be done I suppose not, because that's per server. Okay. Interesting. We've got a wide range of uses with a wide range of information governance requirements, and it is driven by the information governance rather than any sort of feeling that we technically need to do it. And some of it's just loose wording on data transfer agreements. That we then find that we're stuck with because we can't argue it's technically impossible, because these guys have made it possible.
Just on that, actually, are you using, because I saw in your diagram you've got kind of OpenStack clients as well as HPC clusters, so are you using Lustre into those as well? Do you have kind of Lustre going into?
So at the moment, and Adam I can't see him now, he's ducked. Yeah, so Adam runs the OpenStack. That is largely Ceph of various different performance flavors. I think we've actually got quite a lot of Ceph on NVMe to keep the IOPS up. We have a tiny amount of the Spectrum scale being NFS exported into the cloud. And this is kind of where we're getting to with saying, well, actually, that's not going to scale for us, and that actually Lustre is probably going to do a much better job of that, and we can do. What I expect to happen is the entire HPC is going to get picked up and put inside the cloud, and actually, we're not just going to run big HPC. We're going to run one medium-sized HPC and a dozen small HPC clusters, and have images for people to start their own ones when they need it, and there'll be people who want to do Spark and Hail and all sorts of other stuff. And now it's, with the small team we have, the technology is now probably good enough that we can support that without just overcommitting ourselves so totally that it all falls apart.
Okay. Andreas, you've been waiting patiently.
Just a couple of questions or comments. One was whether all of those issues that you've run into have open tickets in the JIRA. I mean, they're never going to get fixed if we don't know about them. But
Mine have.
yeah, so, and like the YAML compliance and things like that. I know we're fixing some of those issues, but I don't know if they're all fixed.
There are tickets for all of them, I believe.
Okay.
Whether they get fixed or not, well, we'll see.
Yeah, and yeah, the other one. I mean, the job stats. Again, you know, it's. I mean, it is one of the features of Lustre that's very unique in terms of labeling the I/O from one end to the other. So it's very useful that way.
So the thing I want to comment on is that it's not secure. So anybody can set it to be whatever they are if you use an environment variable.
You can set it. There's like a per host, a job stat parameter that you can set, or per session ID as well.
Yes, I'm going to. I haven't actually done any work on looking at this for OpenStack apart from standing it up and proving what I said was right.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to have a different version, not header type for OpenStack jobs. Is how I would do it.
Yeah, because then you can set it in the job scheduler or something like that, and it doesn't pull out of the environment variables anymore.
So what we've got today is the job scheduler will set the environment variable for when the job is submitted. So the user doesn't set the environment variable. There's a piece of code that runs on our the host that does the submission. That computes the environment variable. OpenStack will be different.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask Jon a question. Kerberos ticket lifetime on a HPC platform. The nodes stay up a long time.
Thanks, boss.
If you could solve that.
Okay, so the tickets do have a lifetime. I think that the default is usually something like 8 hours. I think ours is perhaps 24. Obviously, when you're putting jobs on a batch scheduler, you've got no idea when it's going to run. I believe there is we are transitioning from being a UG scheduler place to a Slurm scheduler place. I believe there is a Slurm plugin, Spank plugin, don't Google, explain that away to your sysadmin, called AUKS, A-U-K-S, that helps manage Kerberos tickets. And I haven't tried to use that in anger. My reading of it is that it then becomes the user's responsibility to ensure that this bucket has an up-to-date ticket in that it's going to be able to hand out to the job when the job runs.
Do you pass a ticket granting ticket to Slurm? Can it do the ticket renegotiation for you?
Yes, it could, but in practice the ticket lifetime is sufficiently short that it is a fair number of tickets won't still be renewable by the time that the job is scheduled. So the ticket can only be renewed whilst it is still a valid ticket. And once it's ceased to be valid, it can't be renewed. You need a new ticket. And so the choice is then to either set a really long ticket lifetime, and then why are you using Kerberos at all, or to find some other mechanism. Sooner or later, you're going to have to delegate something enough authority to create tickets for the jobs. But as you're starting from a point of doing nothing, essentially, then anything that you're doing is an improvement on that. Do we really need to be doing this for most of our jobs? No, we don't. But it doesn't look technically infeasible. So we want to try and make sure that we're not ruling out something on the basis that we can't be bothered of something that we should be doing. I mean, it's one of the strange things that we find when we're trying to get systems signed off. People seem to find it easier to get a Windows Active Directory storage system that we laugh at signed off from an information governance perspective. And one of the things that obviously has in it is Active Directory is doing Kerberos already. There is strong authentication going on. The people who are signing these systems off are just more familiar with them and trying to
get sign-off for systems they've never heard of before is actually harder. So trying to use terms that they've heard of is something that also that we think might be helpful.
Getting open source systems signed off is a genuine challenge. Where you're getting the support, where you're getting the bug fixes from it in a timely fashion, actually having that on a piece of paper, and that's where Windows wins, because Microsoft are contracted to do that by big institutions. Sorry.
Yeah, I have a question to Alastair. And you mentioned there was a data loss, and probably this question is for the whole panel. So how can we avoid this happening in the future? And because for the large like Lustre file system, and we don't have your backup facility, and because we simply it's not cost effective. So how could we just avoid this?
I think it depends how much money you're prepared to throw at it. If your ultimate solution is some sort of backup system, off-site backup. That could, depending on your data set size and how regularly that changes, that would be expensive. But no, beyond that, you're looking at redundancy and so on. I mean, I think we were just very unfortunate, and we must have hit some very obscure ZFS bug, which just happened to be some critical timing, and it raised its head, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we just have to be very upfront with our users. We're not backed up. If this is your only copy of the data, then don't put it on our systems. We haven't lost any yet, but largely through good fortune. Just have to be really upfront about that. And
on our Scratch file systems, which are not redundant, we do let users know. We only give them space on that if they are aware and able to use it properly. And we also regularly purge it. So we regularly, 3 times a year perhaps, we tell people we're going to wipe it. Is there anything they would like to be kept on there? Because it really is designed only for Scratch, checkpointing of large simulations.
So in 13 years, I think we've lost data twice. Once was with an MMP bug, which got the sense wrong, and once was when it was quicker to format the file system than it was to delete all the files that the person had created.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very rare event. In our 20-odd years, I think we've only had the one data loss.
Yeah. I would say in our university world, at least, the appetite for looking for a documented DR approach is much higher than it was. We may get there, actually, full back of these big systems that are live. It's probably never going to happen, but practical ways between snapshotting and second off-site copy, I think that is inevitable, at least on a limited, although hard experience of any sysadmin is if you have some storage that's backed up and some that's not, and you make a price difference between the two, they're going to put their sensitive data on the not backed up system, so you mustn't give them a choice. If you give a user choice, they'll make the wrong decision, I think is a general attitude of life. I think we had a question, sorry.
Yeah, so it's possibly redundant actually, because I was going to ask, because we use ZFS quite a lot for our tier 2 storage as well. And I was just wondering if anyone on the panel had any experience using, because I seem to recall there being a Lustre pool, like file system wide snapshot utility that you could snapshot every AST at the same time and then presumably send them all off. I don't know if anyone's had a go with that at all. No.
I was talking to Richard about that, so he can say something.
Well, so inside, fortunately I'm an alien on this. I'm for the DDN organisation, so we have a product coming out this time next year, which has snapshot support, but it's based on LDiskFS. So it's not ready yet, but we are actually working and doing that for this precise reason. But bear in mind, snapshots is not backup. Please remember that.
I'm not seeing many more hands. I had one more question. I'm going to bare my soul, my ignorance, Alastair. PFL, progressive file layout. A directory is being affected by that as well.
So you can set it on an individual file before you create the file, or you can set it on a directory.
Okay, but that's all files in the directory. But the directory itself, so is that considered to be... Sorry, James, maybe.
If you set it on the directory, all files created in that directory will inherit that layout.
Right.
Works really well.
We'll have to see what you're...
Yeah.
We were trying quite a ambitious PFL in the hope that it would, several different layers.
We've got 3 layers.
Yeah.
First 64 on metadata server, up to a gig, I think, on one OST, then everything else was completely striped.
Right. I think we had an additional layer in there, but I think the problem was some of the users were writing, 500,000 files into a directory.
Yeah, it works.
That sort of thing. If they do an LS on that, it just
that's yeah.
ground the file system to a halt.
No, it shouldn't ground to a halt. It should just go not very fast.
Well, yeah, that's right. It goes not very fast, and then someone else does think, oh, what's happening here? Do an LS.
So it should go very slowly for that user. It shouldn't affect anybody. I wouldn't expect it to affect anybody else. There was an issue when, if you had lots of machines reading the single file, it went horribly slowly if it was on the same machine.
Right.
But that's, I think, fixed and was about 5 years ago.
Right. So I think the key thing about PFL, you have to have some knowledge or prior knowledge about the users and the data. So sitting at the root file system may not be the best idea. So if we're taking like life science or automotive, they have like 1/reference. Those are generally big files. That's an easy big win. Small home files. If you slash it, it's a directory called /IOPS. That'd be a classic case of put that on NVMe's. So with prior knowledge and multiple directories, yes, you can set it at the root level directory.
We just set it at the root level, and everybody, it's the same thing. It works.
Yeah. Good for you.
Okay.
We're simple.
Thank you. I think that's filled up. I think that's been a very lively discussion, nicely spread.